Welcome to this first video in our new series, Principle 1335. Principle 1335 is based on a passage of Scripture in John 13:35, and where Jesus says this: "By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." And so learning how to have loving conversation, particularly when it's most difficult, is really what Principle 1335 is all about. Like it says there on the screen, is that every relationship is great until it isn't. And usually what begins the unraveling is a failure to communicate. There was an old movie back in the day that one of the key lines that one of the actors said in it is that what we have here is a failure to communicate. And that's true in most relationships. So in this series, we're going to teach you some key principles on loving communication, especially when it's hardest to communicate. So stay tuned. Karen, welcome to this new series. Thank you for joining me in it. And I'm excited about it. One of the things that I've done all throughout my career is that I build curriculum. I not only build curriculum for the church, I also worked for the University of California for many years, building special curricula for them, and and I thought, man, I took a lot of the skills that I learned from building curriculum at the university and applied it into ministry settings, and it's crazy because I just love doing that, and it's just kind of like one of the ways that God has outfitted me. So a few years ago, I created a curriculum called Principle 1335. And really what sparked that was a lady who came to me in the church, and she had a beef with a guy in the church, an older man in the church. And she wanted for me to go and talk to him. So, I get to be the hired gun and all of that. And I said, no. I said, and I didn't say it to her in that tone, but I said, no, I'm not going to go and talk to him. I can teach you how to talk to him.
Yeah.
But she eventually left the church.
Well, she couldn't get you to do what she wanted.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I just had a lady in the church the other day call me up and wanted me to talk to her husband. Now they'd been married for a long time, a long time. Yeah. And she wanted me to call up her husband and talk to him about some of the problems that she's having with him. I said, no, I'm not gonna talk to your husband about some of the problems that you have with him. I can teach you how to talk with him. And I gave her, some tips on how to do that. And these are the exact same tips that we'll be kind of like going through in Principle 1335 here. And so, and she was delighted. Actually, she followed some of my suggestions, and she was delighted at how well it went.
Good. Hopefully she doesn't leave the church.
Yeah. Every once in a while I have a win. But but trust me, I've had when I look back over my ministry, I think, well, why doesn't it work better for me? You learn about all these other pastors who just do it so well. Why doesn't it work better for me? So
they don't tell about their losses. They just tell about their wins.
Yeah, so that's true. Yeah.
You just don't know all the other ones.
Yeah, exactly. So I do have to set this up before we get to our reaction video. I do have to set this up by saying this, is that you as the viewer might be tempted to tune out from this because you say, well, I'm not a Christian, and so, or I'm not having any church conflict, so why does this relate to me? What I'm telling you here in this series is that you're going to learn the principles of dealing with conflict when it's hardest. Learning how to communicate when it's hardest to communicate. Yeah. And any relationship, if it's going to succeed, has to learn how to communicate when it's hardest to communicate. Now, my wife and I have been working on that for over 50 years now. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you right now, it's not easy, So we're a lot better than we were when we first, and it's not that we were so bad when we first got married, but it was just, we still had a long way. That's one good thing about getting older and growing older together, is that you kind of have the opportunity to smooth out all of those wrinkles. Well, you're getting so many more. I'm talking about physically. So, all right. So let's go ahead and we will take a look at this video here, and then you can ask me some questions along the way. And once again, just because it's talking about it in a Christian context, learn how to think beyond that to the larger principles. Here we go.
Welcome to Principle 1335, a Christ-centered conflict management program for churches and Christians. Churches that mismanage conflict compromise their witness to the world, and all it takes to be a church that mismanages conflict is to have people within it who don't know how to manage conflict effectively. The church is people, individuals who possess differing relationship management skills. The church is filled with people from all walks of life. They come into God's family with an entire set of relationship management skills already in place, some of which are completely dysfunctional. Normally, this dysfunction doesn't show up in the day-to-day life of the church. Only when people's feelings get hurt will their conflict management skills surface. And sometimes when they surface, they have disastrous results. Principle 1335 is a curriculum designed to help church members and leaders to learn healthier and more effective ways of managing conflict. The foundation of this training is drawn from John 13:35, where Jesus says, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." More than any other aspect of church life, more than what ministries or events that we offer, more than the size of our church or the architecture of our building, the quality of our relationships is what matters most. This is what people notice. It's what attracts them to us. Generally speaking, Christians are confused about love. They think that it means always being nice to people. But Jesus wasn't always nice to people, yet he always spoke what people needed to hear most. He always sought what was best for them. Love always serves the health of the individual and the relationship, even when that means having a difficult conversation with someone when you've been hurt by them. The effectiveness of your church and its witness to the world rests upon you learning and practicing this important skill. You can learn healthy conflict resolution with the Principle 1335 program. In the next lesson, you'll learn about a couple of common personality types who are drawn into conflict in churches. Maybe you'll see yourself reflected in one or the other. But for now, watch the summary video below.
Okay, so we're not watching the summary video right now, obviously. But I'm just going to go with the flow here, and instead of, having a big kind of back and forth on stuff, maybe you can just ask me some questions, and we haven't rehearsed this.
Okay.
So we're flying by the seat of our pants.
Yeah. So maybe you can go a little bit more into detail about why you decided to create this. Like, what was it that kind of brought you to this?
Well, in all honesty, that my biggest ministry failures have been as the result of ineffective communication. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'd say really it's interpersonal communications, and that that so the initial prompt was this lady who wanted me to be the hired gun and and do the hit on this guy in the church, you know.
Yeah.
But long before that, I had gone through a very painful church experience where there was you know, a major breakdown in that congregation, and I was the pastor there. But I could see that a lot of these principles that we'll learn in Principle 1335 were not in play.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, you know, it's been, all of this is born from my personal experience in dealing with people and my own personal failures. So, so next question, please. Let's move on.
You talked a little bit about that this is not just necessarily a Christian program, like I mean, even though it has Christian principles that it's rooted in,
Yeah.
like who could use this? Like how would it be used?
Okay. There's one little statement that was made in the slideshow that we just watched, and it said something that love always serves the health of the relationship and the health of the individual.
Yeah.
Okay. And so love always serves that, and particularly how we communicate.
Right.
And so so I tell people, instead of seeking to have happy relationships, seek to have healthy relationships. And how do you know what's healthy? Well, you really have to sort through that, you know, with respect to particular situations. But what's loving? I am convinced of this, and I've said this many times to people that I coach, that that you can have a healthy relationship with the most dysfunctional person. And so they get always confused about that. And here's my reply, is that sometimes you have to love people from afar. You know, and sometimes, and I've said before, the best place for a dangerous dog is behind a high fence. And then if you get bit, that's your problem. You know, you're stupid enough to stick your hand in the cage. You know? Some people you cannot have a safe relationship with, but you can have a healthy relationship with them. That, by the way, is why we build prisons. You can't have a safe relationship with them, but you can have a healthy relationship with them, and you put them behind bars. You know, go ahead.
Yeah. So, how have you been able to use this program?
Yeah, I you know, I not only preach this stuff, I practice it. But my wife would be the first to tell you that I don't practice it perfectly. But you know, it's not about growth is not about perfection. It's about progress.
Yeah.
But you don't know how to progress unless you have kind of the framework around you on in what direction to go and what goal you're heading towards.
Yeah.
And so I don't do this. I don't do this perfectly, but I always seek to progress or progress. Something like that. One of the two. So,
I think
all right.
Progress.
Yeah, progress. Yes, you're right.
Unless it's like what you've done and you've made progress.
All right. There's the English lesson for today. Okay, a couple more questions you have, or as many as you want. Huh?
We'll progress with this until we have progress.
There we go. We'll progress as we progress. Something like that. Okay, enough of that. Let's move on.
Yeah. Well, this isn't so much of a question, but
Yeah.
a little bit of an observation is I like how at the beginning of the thing it says that you need this, like this is your witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and so not only like, okay, I've gone to a lot of churches. So not only has my husband worked at, like, we've worked at 5 different churches,
Yeah.
we've gone to almost every church in our area that's the same religion as us,
Yeah.
and, uh, when you walk into the doors of a church, there's been a couple times where my husband just turned around and walked.
Yeah. Oh, I agree, man. I agree. There's just a whole lot of dysfunction in churches.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, there's like, if you're a church leader or work at a church or anything like that,
Hmm.
some of the information in here is good and it's valuable for that. Not to say it wouldn't be something you can apply in your marriage or your relationships or whatever, but yeah, some churches we've walked into and you just know right off the bat, this is not going to be a good place for us to go. But
And
even
that.
just as an individual, your
Mhm.
witness in the world depends on how you are able to relate with other people, especially other Christians.
And that gets back to this issue that we talked about in the gaslighting series.
Hmm.
Is don't ignore your smell detector.
Yeah.
When it seems off, it is off.
Yeah.
And walking out of a church, while it may be a little, have a moment of embarrassment, is
Hmm.
that do not stay in a church where your smell detector is going off.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, walking out after you stepped into it immediately isn't that bad, but we've walked out in the middle of services, and that's a lot more embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Next question, please.
Oh goodness. All right. What are some ways, as far as like, what kind of do you need out of somebody to be able to do this, where you're dealing, it says, you're dealing with past dysfunctions. I think dysfunctions probably coming from both sides of the fence.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
So what are you going to be able to need to have in order for this to be successful?
Is that is that first of all is that maybe I can put it this way,
Okay.
is that it's kind of like Dancing with the Stars. you, know, you know that TV show,
Yeah.
Dancing with the Stars. The people that get on Dancing with the Stars are not pro dancers,
Mm-hmm.
but they are guided by pro dancers.
Yeah.
Now when in your relationships, in your marriage or whatever, is that you don't have to be a pro dancer, but you just have to learn some of the steps and then
Yeah.
guide your partner in those steps. Now
Mm-hmm.
here's what you can do is that if you find out that your partner is resistant to dancing with you, then just step back and say, right now is not a good time for us to learn how to dance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to teach you. And you don't have to come across as some sort of great authority. You don't even have to tell them that you know more than they do about conflict management,
Yeah.
But you just back out of it when the conflict is going south. You just say, right now is not a good time for us to keep going down, keep having this dance. I need to
Mm-hmm.
take a break.
Yeah.
And then when they come back and you tap them on the shoulder, or they tap you on the shoulder again and say, "Hey, I'm wondering if you're willing to dance a little bit." You say,
Mm-hmm.
"Sure, let's try it again."
Yeah.
But the key is for you to learn the skills.
Mm-hmm.
and then guide them in the process.
Mm-hmm.
But if they insist on stepping on your toes, no, we're not going to have that dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Next question.
Hey, I got to get going to go get
Okay.
my kids.
Oh,
But
yeah.
last question, and you
Okay.
can answer this one without me on the camera.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'm sorry. The time got away from me.
No, you're good. How much is the program?
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so, thank you, Karen, for spending some time with me. I'm going to wrap this thing up, and I'm going to jump over here. Okay, we'll see you next time. So, okay, now, on our Facebook group that at beyondbetrayal.org, I will post a coupon for anybody who's a part of that Facebook group that will give you free access to our content. And otherwise, for the 10 lessons in this program, that it's $50. And so if you want to, if you don't want to bother with getting into, checking out our group, that's cool, and I respect that. Our Facebook group is beyondbetrayal.org, and I will post that coupon there for Principle 1335. Otherwise, I'll post the link to where you can access the program. Wherever we're broadcasting this, I will include the link where you can access it, and that's the direct access. And hopefully I'm making this clear, but that's the direct access if you want to pay the $50 without hassling, getting into any Facebook group or anything like that. So that's it for now. I am looking forward. I really am looking forward to this one because this is some content that I really feel strong about, and I hope that you'll be blessed by it. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.